Okay, so this is going to be my report on Bellator MMA and the NASCAR, and as far as how they're promoting their businesses and what Bellator can possibly learn from NASCAR in 2014 to increase viewership. So first of all, what I got from the Bellator articles were um, their first episode. They started off poorly, but they were also competing with the NHL Stanley Cup that night, the first night. So as expected, it went pretty bad as far as what they were expecting. I believe it was in the 400,000s, their total viewership, which is not what they wanted. They wanted numbers much higher. But as you can expect, with the biggest sporting event for NHL of the year, it drew a lot of numbers away from them. So it wasn't good for them. The second episode, they bounced back. It was like a 26% increase or something like that, which is obviously a lot better than what they started at. The company itself, the Spike, the CEO, whenever he purchased it was actually because the previous one went to Fox. But for this one, he purchased it because he thought it was a gut feeling. He liked it. He liked kickboxing. He liked that type of fighting. So there wasn't much research that necessarily went into the purchase of Bellator. His thoughts for it was he hopes to draw in a cross audience from whether it's from professional wrestling, boxing, stuff like that. Really, just target those type of sports that have the physical attraction of people getting hit, simplified, almost in a gladiator fashion, minus the death of it. Um, so the Glory Fights, the channel that it was on, their one of their big things was knockouts. So 80% of their fights in the study that they did ended in uh, knockouts, over 80% of them, almost exactly. And that's big because when people pay to see a fight, now this is the difference between them. You aren't paying for it. So you're choosing to watch it. They might not be as high level name fighters, but you want to see action. And if you're not paying for it, some people have the stigmatization that I'm not paying for it, so maybe the quality is not going to be as good. The level of fighting won't be as good, which is honestly probably true. The better the product, the more you can charge for it. But in their case, they hope that seeing people get knocked out 8 out of 10 times, um, 16 out of 20 times, that's a lot. So they're hoping that that in itself draws an audience. So, hey, if I turn this episode on tonight, I'm more than likely going to see somebody get punched in the face and they're going to get knocked out. That could draw a crowd for sure, let alone regardless of the level of fighters or the experience of them, people getting knocked out draws a crowd. Kind of like in school whenever people fight, there's always a big circle around it. People are entertained by that. You can't really help it. So that was kind of what the articles were about Bellator. One of the links actually didn't work, so um, that was it. And one other thing I actually looked up was, and I'll get into it in a little bit, but UFC, Dana White, he was asked about Bellator in 2014 before UFC is what it is now for sure. But he honestly was nothing but positive. He basically said, the only time I'm going to come after a company is if they come after me. The people at Bellator haven't done that. They're doing their thing. We're doing our thing. Basically, that's it. He had no quarrel with him. So Bellator certainly wasn't gunning for this top spot as far as best fighting, which was clear. Dana White basically said that without saying that. We're the top dogs and they haven't threatened me, so they're not worth quarreling with. He didn't say that, but he did, certainly. So, and then we move on to the NASCAR ones. Look at those, and obviously we're in the South, and anytime I even hear the word NASCAR, first of all, the first thing I think of is Talladega Nights, super redneck movie, fast cars, big houses, big trucks, the whole 9 yards. NASCAR has a very strict ideology with it, what we think of when we think of NASCAR, and we'll actually get into as to what kind of hurt them trying to get away from that. The traditional fan base is white male. I mean, that's a huge part of their fan base. In the past decade, they had the highest numbers ever. Their stock was the highest ever. Their marketing for their cars was the highest ever. Their viewership was the highest ever. Their stands were completely full every time. It was the best it had ever been. Um, well, they wanted to mix things up. And quite frankly, they pissed off their target audience. They pissed off the white people. They pissed off the males that were hardcore fans, the diehard fans, the ones that were going to tune in every single week, go to everyone they could, the loyal fans. And what they did was they tried to branch out, diversify, which sounds great and all. But if you're going to piss off people that are paying the real money for it week in and week out, I'm not talking about one specific event, that's going to hurt them. And they did. They felt that hit. So after that, they kind of just started tumbling and coming up with different things on the fly. They made cars generic. People did not like that. They went to social media. People didn't like that because they read newspapers. They brought in different types of racers like motocross. They brought in Danica Patrick, who is actually the only one that's still in there of the three. The other two males failed miserably. Danica Patrick actually was quite successful, and she was in a lot of GoDaddy commercials. She gave a very good representation of NASCAR as far as a woman entering the playing field. So she was actually a positive one for sure. And all of that was kind of done at the peak. Like, they didn't need to change anything, but they felt that they could. They added locations outside of the South, on the West and the Midwest, which pissed the traditionalists off. Like I said, they went to social media. Older people don't really use social media like people might do. They shot for the younger kids. They shot for African Americans, which is great in theory, but you have to be able to pull it off. And they struggled with that. Their numbers hurt a little bit. So whenever I look at all that stuff, I think NASCAR definitely had some great ideas as far as what they were trying to do. But if I was Bellator, I would definitely, more than anything, I would look at the failures of what NASCAR did. What pissed people off? You don't want to piss your loyal people off. So do whatever you have to do as Bellator in 2014 to maintain your 250,000 people, whatever number you think it is, that is going to tune in week and week out, your loyal fan base. Reward them by continuing to keep the main thing. Then stuff they do, like NASCAR did with Danica Patrick, with diverse drivers. They went out, they hired somebody who went to talk to people, went to go to towns, cities, stuff like that, more face-to-face, to get people to maybe change what they think of when they hear that word. So that's definitely something I think that Bellator could use, is look at the failures even more than the successes, because NASCAR hurt themselves way more than they helped themselves. If you can maintain that core, the core people of who you like or who like you the most, keep them happy, but also slowly. Don't do it quickly. Do it slowly so people don't notice as much, as far as the branching out, the making it more diverse. Don't make that a fast process, because it can't be. You can't make one side happy and the other side happy without you'd have to compromise to that. So while you're keeping this happy right here, move your main thing slowly. It can't be like that. It has to be an extremely slow process of diversifying your product, because when you do that slowly, people will become interested. And in the meantime, you won't be pissing off your core fan base. It'll be happening in a slow process, so the changes might be a lot more subtle in how you approach that. Honestly, I think that, let me make sure I answered all those questions, but I do think that Bellator certainly had a good product, an established product, but kind of in a different manner, and they could learn from NASCAR. Yep. So hopefully I nailed that interview, but yeah, my main opinion on, after all the readings, and obviously it's 2020 now, so we know how that turned out. Obviously, UFC is the main dog, and I've never even heard of Bellator, but 6 years ago, I would have told them, learn from their failures, not their successes, because the more failures you can prevent, the more successful you'll be. So that's it. Thank you.